Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Boston Red Sox are sitting on a powder keg and the fuse is already lit. For the first time in years, this isn't a team desperately searching for talent or scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to piece together a competitive roster. No, this is a completely different problem, and honestly, it might be even more complicated. The Red Sox finally have what every fan has been screaming for since the championship window slammed shut. They have depth, real, legitimate, major league caliber depth. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. That depth might actually be the very thing that tears this roster apart. Right now, inside the walls of Fenway Park, there's a quiet tension building. It's the kind of situation that doesn't make headlines every single day, but it's brewing underneath the surface like a storm gathering strength over the Atlantic. The Red Sox have too many talented outfielders and not enough spots to play them all. And when you've got millions of dollars tied up in contracts, young superstars demanding playing time, and a front office trying to balance present competitiveness with future championship aspirations, something has got to give. The question isn't if a move is coming anymore. The question is, who's going to be the odd man out when the music stops? Over the past several days, two separate but deeply connected stories have emerged from the Red Sox organization, and when you put them together, they paint a picture of a franchise standing at an absolute crossroads. One story involves a veteran slugger whose time in Boston has been marked by unfulfilled expectations, nagging injuries, and a contract that's becoming harder to justify with every passing day. The other story involves one of the team's brightest young stars, a Gold Glove-winning outfielder who's already being dangled in trade rumors, despite being just 26 years old and coming off a career-best power season. And sitting right in the middle of all this chaos is manager Alex Cora, who's now being forced to address questions he probably wishes he didn't have to answer. Let's start with the situation that's been simmering quietly for almost 3 full seasons now. Masataka Yoshida. When the Red Sox brought Yoshida over from Japan, the hype machine was running at full throttle. This wasn't just another international signing. This was supposed to be the guy who would anchor the middle of the lineup for years to come. An elite contact hitter with professional discipline at the plate, a player who could get on base consistently and provide the kind of offensive stability that championship teams are built around. The front office made a serious financial commitment, believing they were getting a cornerstone piece for the next era of Red Sox baseball. But reality, as it so often does, had other plans. Yoshida's time in Boston hasn't been a disaster, but it hasn't been the success story anyone envisioned either. He can hit. There's absolutely no question about that. We've seen flashes of brilliance, moments where the talent that made him a star in Japan shines through like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Just look at what he did representing Japan in the World Baseball Classic. During those 4 pool play games, Yoshida was absolutely magnificent, reminding everyone why he's considered one of the greatest hitters in the tournament's history. And even more recently, during spring training, the baseball has been jumping off his bat with an authority that's been missing for long stretches during his major league career. But here's where things get complicated, and this is where manager Alex Cora found himself in an uncomfortable position this week. When reporters started asking Cora about Yoshida's trade value, you could almost feel the tension in his response. Cora said he doesn't really know about the trade value, then quickly added that Yoshida is a good hitter. On the surface, that sounds like a manager defending his player. But if you've been around baseball long enough, if you understand the subtle language that managers and front office executives use when they're navigating difficult roster situations, you know that response says volumes. Cora didn't emphatically shut down trade speculation. He didn't say Yoshida is untouchable or that the team is absolutely committed to him long-term. He gave the kind of carefully measured response that leaves the door cracked open just enough for possibilities to slip through. Because the brutal truth that nobody in the organization wants to say out loud is this: the problem with Yoshida isn't really about Yoshida at all. He's not a bad player. He's not a clubhouse cancer. He hasn't embarrassed himself on the field or created drama off it. The problem is roster construction, and right now, Yoshida is the square peg trying to fit into a round hole that's getting smaller by the day. The Red Sox outfield situation has evolved dramatically, and Yoshida is increasingly looking like the player who doesn't quite fit the puzzle anymore. Let's break down what the Red Sox are actually dealing with here. You've got Roman Anthony, one of the most electrifying young prospects in all of baseball, a player who represents the future of this franchise in the most exciting way possible. You've got Jarren Duran, who's transformed himself into a dynamic, game-changing presence in the lineup, the kind of player who can impact a game with his bat, his legs, and his glove. On any given day, either Anthony or Duran could slot into the designated hitter spot and provide serious offensive production. But if that happens, if one of them is DHing, then where does Yoshida play? The answer that nobody wants to admit is that he might not play at all. He could end up sitting on the bench, watching from the dugout, becoming an $18 million spectator. And that's the number that makes this whole situation even more complicated. Yoshida still has 2 years remaining on his contract, and he carries an $18 million luxury tax hit for each of those seasons. That's not pocket change. That's serious money, the kind of money that makes other teams extremely cautious about taking on the commitment. It's the primary reason Yoshida hasn't already been traded, because any team that acquires him has to be willing to absorb that financial obligation, and in today's baseball economy, there aren't many clubs lining up to do that without getting something significant in return, or without the Red Sox eating a substantial portion of that contract. Cora also touched on another factor that's affected Yoshida's production during his time in Boston: shoulder problems. These aren't minor aches and pains that you can just play through with some ice and anti-inflammatories. These are legitimate shoulder issues that have limited Yoshida's performance and prevented him from fully unleashing the offensive potential that made him such an attractive signing in the first place. When a hitter is dealing with shoulder problems, everything suffers. Bat speed decreases, power evaporates, the swing mechanics get compromised as the body tries to compensate for the injury. And over the course of a long season, those issues compound and multiply until you're looking at a player who's a shadow of what he should be. So here's where the Red Sox find themselves with Yoshida. He's showing signs recently that the talent is still there, that he can still be a productive major league hitter when healthy, but the roster around him has changed. The team has young players who need at-bats and veterans who are producing. The uncomfortable reality is that Yoshida may no longer be the right fit for what this team is trying to accomplish. Cora made it crystal clear that any decision about trading Yoshida wouldn't be his call. That responsibility falls squarely on the shoulders of Red Sox Chief Baseball Officer Craig Breslow. Cora's job is simply to manage whoever is on the roster, whether that includes Yoshida for the entire season or whether the front office decides to move him before the trade deadline or even sooner. But just when you think the Red Sox outfield situation couldn't get any more fascinating, another story emerges that adds an entirely new layer of intrigue to this whole narrative, because Yoshida might not be the only Red Sox outfielder who ends up in serious trade discussions. There's another name circulating in the rumor mill, and this one involves a player who's younger, more productive, and frankly more appealing to teams around the league. We're talking about Abreu. If you watched the Red Sox last season, you know exactly what Abreu brings to the table. The kid is only 26 years old, and he's already proven he can impact the game on both sides of the ball. Offensively, he just posted the best power numbers of his career with 22 home runs. That's legitimate pop, the kind of production you can build a lineup around. But what makes Abreu truly special, what makes him such a valuable commodity in today's game, is his defense. The man just won back-to-back Gold Glove awards. That's not a fluke. That's not some statistical anomaly. That's elite defensive ability, the kind that can change games and save runs in critical moments. According to a recent analysis from CBS Sports analyst Mike Axisa, Abreu's name is already appearing in trade deadline speculation. Not because he's struggling or because the team is unhappy with him, but because of the exact same problem we've been talking about. The Red Sox have too many quality outfielders. In his breakdown of potential trade candidates across Major League Baseball, Axisa suggested that at some point, Boston may decide to move one of their left-handed hitting outfielders to create better roster balance. And when you start going through the list of who could realistically be moved, Abreu's name jumps out immediately. Think about it logically. Roman Anthony is viewed as untouchable, a cornerstone piece of the franchise's future who's not going anywhere. Yoshida has that $18 million luxury tax hit that makes him extremely difficult to move without eating significant money. That leaves exactly two realistic trade candidates, Wilyer Abreu and Jarren Duran. And that's where things get really interesting, because if the Red Sox did decide to shop Abreu, there would be no shortage of interested teams. One team that's already been mentioned as a potential fit is the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies had an excellent regular season in 2025, finishing with a 96-66 record. But once again, their championship dreams were crushed in the postseason when they got eliminated by the Los Angeles Dodgers in the National League Division Series in just 4 games. That early exit lit a fire under the Phillies' front office, and they were aggressive during the offseason, trying to address their weaknesses. Their biggest move was re-signing star slugger Kyle Schwarber to a 5-year contract. They also added Brad Keller, Adolis Garcia, Jonathan Bolin, and Kyle Backus. They brought back veteran catcher JT Realmuto on a 3-year deal. They made moves, they spent money, they showed they're all in on trying to win a championship. But even after all those additions, analysts still believe the Phillies could use another impactful outfielder. And that's exactly why Abreu has been mentioned as a potential target. He brings everything Philadelphia needs: power at the plate, with that ability to hit 20-plus home runs, elite defense in the outfield, with those back-to-back Gold Gloves, proving it's not a one-year wonder. And he's still young enough that his best years could still be ahead of him. There's legitimate upside here, the possibility that his offensive production could continue to climb as he gains more experience and enters his prime years. For the Phillies, acquiring someone like Abreu could provide exactly the kind of boost they need to make a deeper postseason run. He'd upgrade their outfield defense immediately while adding another legitimate power threat to a lineup that already features Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Trea Turner, and the rest of that dangerous core. But here's the thing, if the Red Sox actually made Abreu available, Philadelphia wouldn't be the only team calling. Outfielders who can hit 20-plus homers and play Gold Glove caliber defense are incredibly rare and incredibly valuable. Teams would be lining up to make offers, and the bidding war could get intense very quickly. When you step back and look at both of these stories together, when you connect the dots between Yoshida's uncertain future and Abreu's rising trade value, a bigger picture starts to emerge. The Red Sox finally have something they've been missing for years: real depth, legitimate competition for playing time. The kind of roster where talented players might actually end up on the bench because there are other talented players producing. For so long, Red Sox fans were begging the front office to build this kind of depth, to stop relying on hoping marginal players would overperform and actually construct a roster where difficult decisions had to be made because there were too many good options. Well, congratulations, that day has arrived. But depth is a double-edged sword. Yes, it means the team is better equipped to handle injuries and slumps. Yes, it means there's actual competition that pushes everyone to perform at their highest level. But it also means that at some point, someone's going to be unhappy. Someone's going to be the odd man out. Someone's going to end up traded because the roster just can't accommodate everyone. And for a front office, for a general manager, for a chief baseball officer like Craig Breslow, these are the decisions that define careers. Think about what Breslow is facing right now. He's got Yoshida, a player with obvious talent but an expensive contract and an increasingly unclear role on the roster. He's got Abreu, a young Gold Glove winning outfielder with developing power who could fetch a significant return in a trade. He's got Duran, who's become a dynamic player in his own right. He's got Anthony, the untouchable prospect who represents the franchise's future. And he's got a fan base that's watching every move, analyzing every decision, ready to explode on social media if things don't work out. No pressure, right? The reality is that the Red Sox are no longer stuck in that aimless rebuilding phase where they're just trying to get through a season without embarrassing themselves. They're building something real here. The roster is starting to look competitive again. The talent level is rising, the expectations are growing. But with that progress comes difficult choices, and depending on how this season unfolds, we could absolutely see a major move involving one or both of these outfielders. If the Red Sox are in playoff contention and need to upgrade another position, Abreu could become a valuable trade chip. If they're struggling and looking to cut payroll, Yoshida could be moved if the right deal materializes, even if it means eating some money. Here's what makes this whole situation so fascinating from a fan's perspective. For years, the Red Sox have been criticized for not having enough talent, not having enough depth, not building a roster that could compete with the Yankees and the Rays and the Blue Jays. Now, they might have too much talent in certain positions, and that's creating an entirely different set of problems. It's a good problem to have, don't get me wrong, but it's still a problem that requires solutions, and those solutions are going to involve some painful decisions. The baseball world will be watching closely to see how this plays out. Will Yoshida finish his contract in Boston, or will he be wearing a different uniform by the trade deadline? Will Abreu develop into an offensive star with the Red Sox, or will he be packaged in a deal that brings back pitching or helps balance the roster in other ways? Will Duran continue his development and become an untouchable piece of the core, or could he also find his name in trade rumors if the right offer comes along? These are the questions that will define the next few months of Red Sox baseball, and the answers will tell us everything we need to know about what direction this franchise is truly heading. One thing is absolutely certain. The days of the Red Sox roster being boring and predictable are over. This team has talent. This team has depth. This team has decisions to make, and those decisions are going to shape the future of the franchise for years to come. Whether Craig Breslow makes the right calls, whether the players who stay continue to develop, whether the players who get traded end up haunting Boston in the future, all of that remains to be seen. But right now, in this moment, the Red Sox are at a crossroads, and the path they choose could lead either to championship glory or to years of regret and second-guessing. The pressure is on, the clock is ticking, and Red Sox fans everywhere are watching, waiting, hoping that the front office gets this right, because if they do, if they make the smart moves and keep the right pieces and build around the core talent that's already here, this could be the beginning of something special. But if they get it wrong, if they trade the wrong guy or hold on to someone too long or miscalculate the value of what they have, then we could be looking at another lost opportunity, another what-if story, another chapter in the complicated and sometimes heartbreaking saga of modern Red Sox baseball. So what do you think? Should the Red Sox pull the trigger on a Yoshida trade if the right offer comes along, even if it means eating some of that contract? Or should they hold on to him and hope the shoulder issues are behind him and that he can rediscover the form that made him a star in Japan? And here's the even tougher question. If the front office had to choose between keeping Wilyer Abreu long-term or keeping Jarren Duran long-term, which direction would you go? Do you prioritize the elite defense and developing power of Abreu, or do you build around the speed and athleticism and game-changing ability of Duran? These aren't easy questions, and reasonable fans can disagree on the answers. This is exactly the kind of situation that makes baseball so compelling. It's not just about what happens on the field during games, it's about the chess match happening behind the scenes. It's about roster construction and contract negotiations and evaluating talent and projecting future performance. It's about balancing present competitiveness with future sustainability. It's about making tough calls that could look brilliant or disastrous depending on how things play out over the next few years. And right now, the Boston Red Sox are right in the middle of that chess match, and the next few moves could determine whether this franchise returns to championship contention or remains stuck in mediocrity. The stage is set. The players are in position. The front office has the power to make moves, and Red Sox Nation is waiting with a mixture of excitement, anxiety, hope, and dread to see what happens next. Because after years of frustration and disappointment and watching other teams celebrate championships while Boston rebuilt, there's finally a sense that something real could be happening here. The talent is there, the depth is there, The potential is there. Now it's just a matter of whether the decision makers can put all the pieces together in the right way. This is Red Sox baseball in 2026. This is the reality of building a championship roster in the modern game. And this is exactly why we love this sport, even when it drives us absolutely crazy. The drama never stops. The storylines never end. And the passion of the fan base never wavers, no matter how many difficult decisions have to be made along the way. The next few months are going to be absolutely crucial for this franchise, and you can bet that every move, every trade, every roster decision will be analyzed and debated and argued about by Red Sox fans for years to come. Because that's what we do, that's who we are, and that's why this team, with all its complications and all its possibilities, will always matter more than just wins and losses on a scoreboard.